What's up, y'all? It's the kid FortWorthFabian, man. BigBossFabo. I'm back with a video for the channel. I'm actually doing a live stream reaction to Law and Crime Network. Yo, y'all guessed it, Alex Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh Juror tells all how jury knew disgraced lawyer killed family. Bruh, y'all. So I think obviously he been found guilty. They wrapped up the trial. Guilty across the board. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But you know, the one thing I never really, and I even tuned into the Murdaugh mystery, whatever, that whole Netflix series, the documentary they came out with. I tuned into it, and to me, they never really gave detail or alluded to essentially like how they were able to piece together how he did it. So that's what I'm looking forward to in this video, if they're able to really detail maybe the reasoning why, or you know, how he did it that night. Because obviously you hear the phone call, he's calling the police trying to act distraught, and it's like, bro, you killed your whole family. You're not fooling anybody. But yeah, let me know y'all's thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit notification bell, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, FortWorthFabian. It's the road to million subscribers, man. Peace, love, prosperity. Let's go ahead and hop into the video, man. Subscribe to the channel. I do have a Law and Crime Network playlist, so tune into that playlist. Check out all the reactions I've done thus far.
What was your juror number?
530.
530. James, first of all, what was your juror number?
530.
530, okay.
Yes.
When you were first called up for jury duty, did you realize it was going to be this case?
So I wasn't positive, but we were given a questionnaire, so a lot of those questions kind of pertain to the case in some way. So I didn't know for certain, but I did think that it was going to be this case.
When you
Damn, bro, imagine that. And this, keep in mind, y'all, this video is 30 minutes long, so we're probably gonna be here for a good 45 minutes. But imagine you a juror, you got jury duty, and he already said he assumed or knew that he was essentially gonna be on the be working this trial.
Kind of pertained to the case in some way. So I didn't know for certain, but I did think that it was going to be this case.
When you finally got to court and you realized it was, what kind of were your thoughts?
You know, I don't really think I had any thoughts. It was just, I was there to do my civic duty, and I really didn't think that I would be chosen. I had heard that there was like 900 some people that were given, you know, the questionnaire and everything. So out of 900, I didn't really think that I'd be chosen.
Was the Murdaugh case something that everybody talked about around here, or was it something that was just kind of something that happened? And
South Carolina boy.
I think that it was talked about a fair amount, but I actually work over in Charleston, and I've been up in Clemson at school, so I haven't really been in the area for like the past 4 years. So, I mean, it's something that you hear about, but it's not something that I have so many other things going on. It's not something that I dedicated a lot of my time talking about or paying attention to.
You said you went to Clemson, is
yes.
that right? Oh, okay. So you graduated?
Yeah.
Okay, can I ask how old you are?
22.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. So you're around Paul Murdaugh's age.
Yeah, well, I would have been the same age as him in 2021 as far as whenever he passed away.
Wow. So let's talk about the verdict.
Now, if you don't have no clue into this is a big case, right? They did a whole documentary on a series, a TV exclusive series on this in Netflix, man. Shout out to everybody in the live stream. Since we got like 4 views in the live stream right now. Be sure to like the video. Shout out to Vince Carter, Dr. Vince.
You know, we've heard reports you guys deliberated for 2 hours and 50 minutes. I went upstairs last night to figure out what was going on, and somebody said, yeah, we asked them if they wanted dinner, and they said, no, we'll be done in 10 minutes. So it went fairly quickly for a 6-week trial.
They had all the facts
inside the room a little bit.
Well, I will say that whenever, you know, we had asked if we wanted dinner, we were actually rounding up our last few questions that anybody had. So it wasn't that we already had an answer. It was more so that we knew that the questions that we had answers to. We just wanted to talk through them and make sure they made sense. So we just needed that extra 10, 30 minutes. I think it was about 30 minutes that we actually took. And it wasn't that, you know, we had already had the decision, but we knew that we were right there at it.
So the whole 2 hours and 50 minutes, what went on like in the beginning, like just going through the instructions, or?
Well, we had a pretty good idea of what the instructions were just because the judge read them to us, but I would say when we first got in there, what was important to us was just to see where everybody was at and make sure if everybody was on the same page. Maybe we just need to talk through things, make sure that it all makes sense to everybody. But we did have a few that weren't on the same page, so we did like an anonymous vote at the beginning just to see where everybody was at. And once we found that out, we kind of just opened the floor for anybody, whoever had questions, and then we would talk through those. We had the evidence in the other room. So if we had questions
I don't see how a couple folks in there could be discombobulated, bro. How is you confused and lost? I believe a lot of the facts and details to the case are pretty transparent. So what would you really need to figure out? Guilty, hands down, 1,000%. Shout out Miss Pete. Hello from MI. Michigan. Okay, so you watched every day of the trial. Facts.
regarding a certain thing.
So what you think? Kind of put your perspective down below, your thoughts.
We were able to refer back, and we just went one question at a time. We didn't want anybody to not be able to say anything, so we did take turns speaking, so nobody was talking over anybody. If anybody left, we made sure to wait until they could come back. We didn't want anybody to be left out or anybody to miss any piece of information. I think that's all.
Yeah. So it doesn't sound like it was contentious at all.
I think more so than somebody being dead set on one thing or the other. We all, I think, were very good in taking all the evidence and not jumping to any conclusions.
Come on,
but
bro.
rather taking all the evidence and seeing where it led us. Whenever we got to the end and there were some people that weren't convinced, I don't think it was so much that they knew that he was not guilty as they just weren't sure yet.
Come on, man. I think that kind of contributes to the pull he had in that town. Wherever, you know, they was kind of like the chess players. They was maneuvering all the pieces. And if you kind of look at all the, basically pretty much every occurrence that happened prior, the occurrences with his kids, and I'm talking about the ones that's named Buster, the dude who went to college. There's that whole situation where a friend he had passed away and said he had something to do with it. Then we have the son. Who's the son? I forgot the son's name, but the son who had the boating incident. You know what I'm saying? Both of his kids were in incidents to where people passed. You know, there were casualties. And him being having the pull he had, he was just able to twiddle his thumbs and maneuver and just control the narrative. And it was just like, I don't know. Shout out to everybody in the stream, man. Guilty since day one. What up?
They might not have known answers to certain questions. So that's when it really took that 2 hours to kind of walk through something they might not understand, go back to the evidence, go back and see what somebody said about something, and answer those questions for those people. Like I said, it wasn't that they knew that he was not guilty, but they just weren't sure, and they needed the answers to
they
those
weren't
questions
sure.
to be able to get there.
So it was like a 9-3 vote, first vote.
Yes, it was.
Okay. And then slowly, how many votes did you take?
We took one at the beginning. We, like I said, went through all the questions that anybody had, and then at the end we took another vote. And we not only took that other vote, but we went back through beginning to end about all the details and the facts, just to make sure that, you know, somebody's story didn't differ from somebody else's. We were all pretty sure that we knew what had happened and we knew who had pulled the trigger. So then we took a vote at the end, and then we took a moment to gather ourselves. We wanted to make sure that everybody they knew what they were going to say as far as what they thought and what their vote was going to be. We didn't want anybody to have any questions. We didn't want anybody to feel nervous about what they were saying or that they weren't sure. And we wanted everybody to make sure that that's what they said because that's how they felt. We didn't want anybody to feel peer pressured or like they had to say something.
What were some of the questions that people had? Because obviously this was a 6-week trial. It was supposed to be 3, and you weren't allowed to take notes.
Yeah, it was very tough, but I will say that everyone in the jury pool, they paid very close attention. That was actually one of our concerns towards the beginning, was not having anything to, you know, take down notepads. But in the jury room, we were able to have
join hundreds of high achievers.
I don't know, man. Hopefully this video goes into further detail about, you know, kind of what alluded to them.
Paper and pen.
Them coming to the conclusion. I really want to know the details. Like, what was it? What did they find? What clues? What evidence?
And so if we had any questions, that's kind of where we would write down our questions and we saved them all the way until deliberation. A lot of times those questions were answered throughout the trial, so those questions didn't make it to deliberation because they were answered by another witness or somebody else. But we were able to write back there, so we would just have to, you know, wait for one of those 15-minute breaks and then jot it down real quick. So that's kind of how we got through that, of not having anything to write it down.
That's really interesting. What were some of the questions people had? I mean, were there some things that the 3 were thinking, did they have the same questions, or were they just things they couldn't remember? Can you give me an example?
So I think that one of the questions were regarding kind of the gun situation. I think that there was maybe a couple people that weren't very familiar with firearms. So it was, and I completely understand, it's a little hard to understand how you can match a casing to a gun if you don't have that gun. And I think it was important to, realize that they weren't
Okay. How can you match casings to a gun if you don't have that specific gun, or what? 'Cause come on, bro. That kind of sounds like a no-brainer.
matching a casing to a gun.
Like,
They were
come on,
matching a
bro.
casing to another casing that had been shot by the same gun, and we knew that the gun that shot one of those casings had been seen by one of the witnesses that Paul was shooting that gun with his friend. So then you know that both those casings had been cycled through the same gun, and that casing was at the crime scene. So that's how you're able to place that gun at the crime scene and know that it's a family gun.
When you got out there and you did you look at him? What was that like?
I
So
just want to understand what's going through Alex Murdaugh's mind when he's killing his family, his wife and his son. I just don't really understand what brought him to that point. I'm not comprehending that. Because through the documentary, they detail obviously his children being problem children, it seemed like. Maybe a rocky marriage. He was on drugs, over the counters. So I'm not sure if him being on opioids, whatever you want to call it, kind of influenced his mental state. But, bro.
throughout the entire trial, one of the things that I wanted to do, just because I felt like it would benefit me, is watch both sides, both the prosecution and the defense, and see what their reactions were to certain things that were said. So my eyes were constantly going from prosecution to defense to the witness. I wanted to see everybody's reactions and how
What
people
money? He had life insurance or something? I don't get it. What money are you referring to?
were taking things, what their responses were. So whenever we got out there to
I think it was a
you know,
policy or something.
express what our verdict was, I wanted to watch and see how the defense and the defendant reacted. So I know that I'd heard somebody say that was in the audience that we never looked, but I know that for me, I looked at the defense. I wanted to see what the reaction was.
Was there anything that stood out?
I think that the only thing that stood out to me, and it wasn't shocking to me, but was that there was no reaction. It was just a straight face.
The kennel video, how important was that to you all, and was it to you? Because to me, it seems to be the biggest part, or at least one of the biggest pieces of the state's case.
I think it's a very crucial piece, and I think that it's incredible timing as to when they were able to get it, and I think it's incredible timing on Paul's part. I don't think that anyone would have ever known that he was down there if it wasn't for that video.
That's wild. So he had life insurance on his wife. He had a policy on his wife. I knew he was going broke, but I'm not sure where his family struggles or his financial struggles were really coming from. So I guess that
I think that
makes sense.
there's a lot of evidence that points towards Alex, but I feel like that does solidify it. He can't, deny that he was there at that point because there's a video that places him there. I think that it speaks a lot that somebody that couldn't speak, somebody that couldn't be a witness, was able to be a witness even after they had passed away.
I keep saying that the little detective, gathered a piece of evidence to help in his own murder investigation.
Right.
Unwittingly.
The hell?
He didn't
So what had happened? He had collected a video.
or a video of Cash's tail.
Right.
Were there other pieces of evidence that you thought were...
Yeah, come on, man. Spill the beans. Spill the beans.
I think that every piece of evidence was critical. I've heard a lot about when was the point that you really felt like, you were going to sway one way or the other. And it was very important to me to not make that decision prematurely. So I would say that I never made a decision until after both closing arguments. After I knew that I had all the evidence, I felt confident in making a decision, because I think that if you make a decision before you're able to see all the pieces of the puzzle, you may have jumped over, you may have gotten in front of yourself. I think that for me, I am familiar with firearms, so being able to place both of those guns there, and although it was not, the shot shells were not a match to either of the shotguns, it was very interesting that one of the shotguns that happened to be one of Alex's favorite was missing. So that was kind of important to me. It was important to me that they could place both those guns there based off of the matched markings on the shot shells and spent casings. I'd say another piece of evidence that was important to me was his own, time on the witness stand. It was just, there was a lot of things that you were able to gather based off of what he said, how he said it, how he was reacting.
Did he ever make eye contact with you? I kept seeing him look over. I didn't know if he was looking at just a few of the jurors, or did you ever?
So, like I said, I was constantly looking at prosecution, defense, and the witness on the stand throughout the entire trial. Being able to make eye contact with somebody is, I don't know why, but I'll make eye contact with people a lot, especially during the trial.
Got a boy.
And
I like
it was
that.
something that I noticed, that he very rarely ever made eye contact with me, and I don't know if it was on purpose.
Bro, he was guilty. That's sign of guilt. When you can't look nobody in the eye, you a scoundrel. You know what I mean? You got no heart.
Purpose, or if it was just because I always sat all the way on the end, I was kind of away from the rest of the jury once we lost a few alternates. But that was something that I noticed, is just that we didn't make very much eye contact.
Interesting. Did you see?
I ain't gonna lie. Bro was a real shady cat.
I saw them sometimes, but obviously I'm either watching on television or I'm in the courtroom and his back was headed to me.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see tears?
Yes, I did. I know that some people may have said that he did or didn't, but whenever like I said, I watched a lot of people. There was 6 weeks worth of time where I was just watching people and listening to people, and I would say that there was several times that he was crying. Whether they were genuine or not, I don't know, but I would say that he was crying at certain parts of the trial.
Did you believe anything that he said?
I think that he's good at being able to talk to people, and I think that part of the way that he is able to be so good at talking to people is that he's convincing. And I think that whenever he's convincing himself as well, and I think he's able to do that because he often...
You could just tell he capped. Like, you can just tell Buddy a lie. I mean, some people got that gift of gab. They can just talk anybody's ear off. You know what I'm saying? They know how to walk into any kind of room and still, hold themselves. And sometimes you can't BS a BSer. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you can really see through somebody. You can really see, like, bruh is lying. Like, I can see it in his eyes right now. And it's kind of his mannerism, I think, the way he kind of, like, looked down and he kind of looked to the side a little bit. And it's like, if somebody cannot look you directly in the eye, that's telling. Very telling.
The truth with a lie. So I think that there was some truth, and I think that it's true that he did love his family. But
he just loved money
also
more.
mixes
That's
lies
it.
in there. And what those are and where you differentiate those, I'm not sure. But I think that at times he was telling the truth.
He was finessing is what he was doing, man. Be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe. Let me know y'all's thoughts on this trial case overall. Man, Law and Crime definitely is able to tap into, and they cover a lot of the biggest cases. You know what I mean? That's why I'm always doing reactions and tuning into the channel. So Carrie just posted something. Let's see what she posted. She said, okay, his son who was murdered recorded a Snapchat video the same day he was killed. In that video, Alex's voice is in the background, even though he denied he was there. Damn. That's crazy, bro. It's the funniest things, the smallest things that always get people caught up. They think they checked all the boxes, crossed the T's, they dotted all their I's. No, bro, you missed that one thing. This one piece. This, you messed up. Look like the stream is messing up, man. Bear with me, y'all.
Was there a specific point where you thought, obviously we know he was telling the truth about being down at the kennels, but maybe you felt obviously he didn't tell the truth when he talked about leaving the kennels, because I remember a specific portion of that testimony where Creighton Waters asked him, well, what did you say to Maggie when you left the kennels, or did you just get on the golf cart and go? Did you catch that when he said things like, well, I would have said, if he were leaving.
I don't know what happened. The whole video freezing up on us. The stream deteriorating, man. We're losing focus and connection here, man. Let me know if y'all can hear me clearly. Let's try to get the video back up, but got some glitch, some technical difficulties.
I would have said. Did you?
Right. Well, he was saying he was saying, you know, I can't remember what I said, but I would have said, you know,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying. He said, well, I would have said bye or something, because I think they were trying to establish how much time he was down there after that video before he went back. And he was saying, well, you know, I would have said bye. I wouldn't have just hauled back to the house. Again, I forget what your question was originally, but
Well, was there anything
Bro, why you rambling? Stay on
that
topic.
stood out about that? It was probably a bad question on my part. Like, I just noticed that.
Yeah, if you interview with somebody and they can't even answer the question concisely, that's a bad question. That's bad interviewing skills. That's bad reporting on your part.
He got really quiet when asked about, well, what did you say to Maggie? Did you say bye, or did you he said something like, I'm out of here, or something like that?
I think that it was pointed out throughout the trial, well, particularly that portion of the trial, that there's a lot of things that he was able to remember vividly, and there was a lot of things that he was not able to recall. And that was something that I paid attention to, because some of the things that he could remember vividly are things that I wouldn't remember tomorrow. And then some of the things that he couldn't remember vividly were things that I wouldn't forget in 10 years. So and whether that's just a difference on what's important to who, you know, whether him and I differ on what we would find priority to remember or what we would kind of, you know, forget about, I don't know. I don't know every person in the world, but I found it interesting, some of the things that he was able to remember and some things that he was not.
So was the testimony, him taking the stand, did that kind of clinch it for you? I mean, you said you didn't make up your mind until the end, until the closing argument.
I like how they call him a disgraced lawyer in this title. He's not just a lawyer anymore. He's disgraced, bro. He's fell from grace. You know what I'm saying? What they like to call him.
Mm-hmm.
But was that something major that really was part of your decision?
Like I said earlier, I think that all the evidence, all the witnesses, they were all a major part of the trial. Whether one weighed more than other, I think that there were some things that you could kind of rely on a little bit better. Whenever he did get on the stand, I know that it was very abnormal. I've never been a juror before, and I've never sat through trial before, but I did know that the defendant taking the stand was very abnormal. I wouldn't say that at that point that sealed the deal or anything. I just took what he said.
Bruh.
I tried to weigh it both ways.
He
I tried to
contradicted
see
himself
if
the
what he was
whole
saying-
trial. He was saying one thing and he say something else. Like,
and if it
he got caught in his own lies.
was the truth, made sense, then that would make sense. But then I ran it the other way, and if what he was saying just didn't add up, then it didn't add up. So I tried to do that with each piece of evidence. I tried to run it both ways as to if it was true and if it wasn't true, if I could rely on it or if I couldn't. And then which one made more sense and which one, you know, kind of how they were saying about the circumstantial evidence, did it all point to the same conclusion? You know, which one of these, whether it was the truth or whether it wasn't and wasn't reliable, which one points to the conclusion and fits the story better?
How important
None
was
of them.
Dr. Kinsey's testimony?
He talked about a lot and he's very knowledgeable. I would say that he was, you know, a very big part of the case, as well as, you know, a majority of the team. I found it very interesting, some of the things that he talked about, just because it was things that I was interested in. I think it was very interesting as to how he walked through the crime scene, things that he noticed, things that he really, you know, dug into, and things that really caught his eye. But, you know, whether he was extreme.
Damn. I don't know, bro. They're not really giving up too much of the goods. The only good, valuable piece that they covered in this video was the video footage.
Extremely, you know, the biggest part of the case or something like that. I think that he was extremely important and definitely gave us a lot of good information.
Did you ever feel like the prosecution was getting way too into the weeds with the financial stuff? That's something that we thought they were getting too into the weeds.
That's the cream of the crop, though.
Bother you guys, because sometimes you guys looked a little bored when, not you specifically.
She said bored.
I will say that it's a whole new experience for me, just for the last part of that question. So I don't think that I was really bored. A lot of times, you know, maybe I was a little uncomfortable for sitting there for a while, but I was still interested. I thought that, you know, it's a very interesting situation, very interesting case. But as far as for what your original question was, I don't think they got too far into the weeds, because I don't know, that's a tough one for me to
It was
answer.
necessary to an extent.
It's all evidence,
Duh.
You know, whether it was just for the motive.
Well said, young man. That's exactly what I... Bro, who is this reporter? Is she from Law and Crime? I'm disappointed.
The financial stuff doesn't, you know, it doesn't, it's not a factor on whether he was behind the trigger or not, to me. You know, that was something they didn't have to prove. They didn't have to prove motive.
Okay.
But they felt that it was important for us to, you know, see that evidence. So anything that, in my opinion, anything that they put on the table for us to hear, it's important to hear because the judge has made the decision that that's important for us to hear. So I personally don't think that they got too far into the weeds, but somebody else may think differently than me.
Sure. Did you have any feelings about the lawyers on both sides? Did you think they were all good, or I mean, did you have any feelings on them about them?
You know, I have a lot of respect for all of them. They all put a lot of hard work and time.
All right,
into the
man.
case.
They're not really giving too much
I think
context
I
in this
would-
video, so what I'm gonna do is just end it right there. You know what I'm saying? About 20 minutes in, like it looks like they're just sugarcoating. The reporter's really just asking him how he felt about the experience. He's not really going into detail about stuff that really blew the case open.
If nobody wanted to talk, nobody had to. If people didn't want to come to the sentencing, they didn't have to. But a lot of us did want to stand together. You know, we wanted to go there. We wanted to finish this.
It's like he asking about, like they're talking about the sentiment of the case.
That Alec didn't say, you know, I'm sorry for the things that I've done or anything. I mean, he didn't.
An assault.
Your Constitution tie. Tell me about that. I mean.
I'm kind of watching in the bag. I'm kind of fast
We
forwarding
prayed
through this,
before we went in.
but
We prayed before we came out to give the verdict.
they're just asking about the experience. This isn't really detailing anything as long as the lines of how they knew exactly. If anything, the only evidence that really alludes exactly to it that he was there at the scene of the crime when he tried to lie and say he wasn't. Then he contradicted himself, which is very suspicious, right? At that point in time, you're under the radar. You're a suspect, bro. You acting funny. Your story don't match up. At this point, we're going to interrogate you. You got money problems. Oh, look, you took out a life insurance policy on your wife prior or something like that. It's just the dots keep connecting, and we on to you. We on to you. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts overall on the case. Obviously, the verdict, and like, comment, subscribe, man. Hit notifications.